The snow is still falling when Claire Beaumont walks out of the restaurant, and she does not stop to put on her coat. She holds it bundled against her chest like something she forgot she was carrying. Her heels find the icy sidewalk on Rue Saint-Paul, and she keeps moving, one step. Then another. The cold bites through the thin fabric of her dress. The burgundy one she bought 3 weeks ago because Daniel said he wanted her to look elegant tonight. Elegant for his partners, elegant for his clients, elegant for everyone at that table except, apparently, herself. She does not look back at the warm amber glow of Maison Carteret's windows. She cannot. The words are still in her ears. Not Daniel's voice exactly, his voice she has learned to tune out over 5 years. But the laughter, the specific pitch of 14 people laughing at something a man said about his own wife. He had been talking about the new Westmount development. One of the investors, a red-faced man named Gerald, had asked how Daniel managed to keep his focus during such a demanding project. Daniel had smiled that smile, the one that reaches his eyes only in public, and said, "Easy. Claire handles exactly 2 things, picking up our dry cleaning and looking grateful. She's very good at both." The table had erupted. Even the women laughed. Even Sandra from accounting, who Claire had once considered a friend. Claire had kept her face perfectly still. She had spent 5 years perfecting that face. She set down her wine glass, carefully, because she had learned not to draw attention to her hands when they were trembling, and excused herself to use the restroom. She never went to the restroom. Now she is on the street, in the snow, in Montreal in November, and she has no plan beyond the next step and the one after that. Her phone buzzes in her clutch. She does not check it. The old port is quiet at this hour. The tourist season is long gone and the restaurants are winding down, their lights burning warm against the dark. Somewhere across the river, a foghorn sounds. Claire walks past shuttered boutiques and cobblestone. She can barely feel through the numbness spreading up her legs, and she thinks about the fact that she has $847 in a bank account Daniel does not know about. She has been building it since February. $20 here, $40 there. Savings from the grocery money when she bought the store brand instead of the one Daniel preferred. It had felt small and shameful at the time, hiding money like that. Now it feels like the most intelligent thing she has ever done. She ducks into a doorway to pull on her coat and realizes she is shaking. Not from cold, from something else, something older and more specific. She is 31 years old. She has a nursing degree from McGill she stopped using when Daniel said it was embarrassing, a wife of his with her hands in other people's bodily fluids. She has a mother with MS living in a ground-floor apartment on the plateau that Daniel pays for, which he reminds Claire of approximately every 10 days. She has a daughter. No, she does not. She catches herself. She almost had a daughter. There had been those 4 months 2 years ago before everything fell apart. And she has none of the friends she came to this city with, because Daniel found reasons to dislike each of them, one by one, until it was easier to stop trying. She has $847 and the clothes on her back and the sudden violent clarity that she cannot go home tonight. She starts walking again. The snow thickens. Claire has not eaten since noon, and her heels are not made for cobblestones, and she is 3 blocks from nowhere when she almost walks past it, entirely a narrow door set into the stone facade of an old building, warm light bleeding through the frosted glass, and a small brass plaque that reads Archetype. She pushes open the door inside. It is the kind of place that does not advertise itself. Dark wood, low light, a bar along one wall with bottles lined up like quiet soldiers, 4 or 5 tables, most of them empty at this hour. Jazz coming from somewhere, something slow and deliberate that feels like thinking out loud. The whole room smells of cedar and old paper and something cooking that she cannot name. The bartender looks up. He is in his 50s with a face like worn leather and kind eyes. "Bonsoir," he says. "You all right, miss?" Claire realizes she must look exactly the way she feels. Snow melting in her hair. Mascara she has not checked. The dress that was meant to make her look elegant. "Fine," she says. It comes out steadier than she expected. "Just, is it all right if I sit for a while?" "Of course." He nods toward the tables. "Anywhere you like. Can I bring you something?" "Water, please." She takes a table near the back, the one farthest from the door and closest to the wall, and she sits down and puts her phone face down on the table without looking at it. Outside the window, the snow is heavier now. Inside, the Jazz keeps thinking. The bartender brings water and a small dish of mixed nuts without being asked, and Claire looks at them for a moment before realizing her eyes have filled. She blinks it away. She is not going to cry in a bar she has never been in before. She is not going to cry anywhere tonight. She has used up all her crying on the wrong things. She does not notice the man at the bar until he speaks. The nuts are actually good. He imports them from somewhere, Lebanon, I think. She looks up. He is standing a few feet from her table, not approaching, not invading, just pausing, tall, with dark hair that is starting to go silver at the temples. He is wearing a jacket that is well made without being showy, and he holds his glass with the casual ease of someone who has been sitting at that bar for a while. His eyes are dark, the color of lake water in October. "I'm sorry," he says. "I didn't mean to startle you. I just noticed you came in alone and you looked." He stops. "You know what, I'm going to mind my own business. Ignore me." He starts to turn back to the bar. Something about the fact that he stops himself, that he does not push, makes Claire speak. "Cold," she says. "I looked cold." He turns back. "That too. You were going to say something else." He considers this. He has the quality of a person who considers things before saying them, which is already different from most people Claire has spent time with lately. "I was going to say you looked like someone who just made a very hard decision," he says. But that felt presumptuous. Claire looks at him for a long moment. It's accurate, actually. He nods once, makes no move to sit down, offers nothing further, simply accepts this information and waits to see if there's more. "You can sit down," Claire says. "If you want, you don't have to stand there." He crosses to the table toe and sits across from her, unhurried. "Marco," he says. "Marco Caruso Claire, just Claire. For now," he almost smiles. Fair enough. They sit in silence for a moment, and Claire finds, oddly, that it does not feel like silence that needs filling. The jazz fills it. The snow fills it. Mr. Caruso sits with his glass and does not perform. "I walked out of dinner," Claire says eventually. "My husband's business dinner. I just left." "Okay," he says. "Not why. Not are you sure that was wise? Just said something." She stops. He says things in front of people and everyone laughs and I smile and then I go home and I try to figure out what I did wrong. She shakes her head. "Tonight I couldn't do it. I couldn't smile. What did he say?" She tells him. The exact words. The laughter. The fact that Sandra from accounting laughed. Mr. Caruso listens with his full attention in the way that certain rare people know how to do, not waiting for his turn to talk, not formulating a response, just receiving it. "That's not honesty," he says when she's finished. "What he did. People dress cruelty up as honesty because it sounds more defensible. But honesty is private. What he did was a performance." Claire stares at him. "Yes," she says slowly, "that's exactly what it is." "I know what it looks like," he says. "I've watched someone I cared about sit across a table very much like the one you just left and smile through things she should not have had to smile through. Something moves across his face and is gone." I didn't understand what I was watching soon enough. They talk for 2 hours. Claire learns that Mr. Caruso owns commercial real estate in Montreal, Ottawa, and 3 other cities, though he is vague about the specifics in a way that suggests there is more to the picture than what he describes. He grew up in Laval in a family that came from Calabria with nothing and rebuilt themselves from the ground up, which he says without pride and without apology, simply as fact. He has a younger brother who runs the family's legitimate operations and does not ask questions about the rest. He is never married, though there was someone once, a long time ago, and when Claire asks what happened, he says, "She decided that the kind of man I am was not the kind of man she could build a life with." She was probably right. The wound in that sentence is old and calcified, but it is still there. He asks about her mother. Claire tells him about the MS, the apartment on the plateau, the way Daniel uses it as a leash. Mr. Caruso listens and does not offer solutions or judgments. At some point, the bartender brings them food neither of them ordered, a board of cheese and bread, and something preserved. And they eat, and the snow keeps falling, and the jazz keeps thinking. And Claire realizes at 10 minutes to midnight that she has not thought about Daniel's text messages in an hour and a half. "I should figure out where I'm sleeping tonight," she says. "Where are you thinking?" "A hotel. I have some money." She hesitates. "Not a lot." Mr. Caruso looks at her. "Does your husband know about that money?" "No good." He reaches into his jacket and sets a card on the table. Small, cream-colored, understated. A name and a number, nothing else. "Call that number tomorrow morning. Not tonight. Get some sleep first. You need it. But in the morning, call. I know people who can help. Legal help. A safe place to stay while you figure out your next move. A job, if you want one." Claire picks up the card. "Why would you do this for someone you met 2 hours ago?" Mr. Caruso is quiet for a moment. "Because you came in here looking like someone who had just decided to save her own life," he says, "and I happened to be in a position to make that easier. And because I didn't do it for someone else when I had the chance." He stands, buttons his jacket. "Use the number, Claire." "I mean it." He leaves without theater, simply walks out into the snow and is gone. Claire sits at the table with the card in her hand. She does not know that Marco Caruso's name is spoken in certain rooms with a particular kind of care. She does not know that his reach in this city extends into corners that don't appear on any organizational chart, that there are men who have spent careers trying to build a case against him and have never come close, that his word in certain circles carries the weight of law. She does not know any of this. What she knows is that someone listened to her tonight without checking his watch, and that when he offered to help, he did not ask for anything back. She picks up her phone. 43 missed calls from Daniel. She turns it off and goes to find a hotel. The hotel room cost $189 a night and smells like artificial pine and the particular sadness of places people only sleep in when their real lives have temporarily stopped working. Claire sits on the edge of the bed and does not sleep until 4 in the morning. When she finally does, she dreams of nothing, which is the best sleep she has had in years. She calls the number at 9. A woman answers. She does not give her name. She puts Claire through without being asked, and Mr. Caruso's voice comes on the line immediately, as if he has been waiting. "You called," he says. "You said to." "I did." A pause. "How did you sleep?" "Better than I expected." "Good. I need you to listen to me carefully. Has your husband filed anything with the police yet?" The question lands strangely. "I don't. Why would he?" "Because men like Daniel Fitzpatrick use institutions the way they use everything else. I had someone look into him last night. He's already contacted your building's front desk. He told them you're having a mental health episode and that he's concerned for your safety. It's not a police report yet, but it will be if we don't move slightly. Of course he would frame it that way. A concerned husband, a worried man. And who would contradict him? What do I do, she asks. You let me help you. There's a place you can stay, not a hotel, somewhere safe with people I trust. And I have lawyers who have been waiting for a file like yours for a long time. She thinks about her mother, about the apartment Daniel pays for, about how easy it would be for him to stop. He pays my mother's rent, she says. If I do this, if I actually leave, that's already being handled, Mr. Caruso says. Trust me, Claire, just get in the car. A black Audi is waiting outside the hotel 20 minutes later. The driver is a woman, which Claire had not expected, early 40s, professional, quiet. She introduces herself only as Diane. They drive north through the city, past Outremont and into the winding streets above the mountain, where the houses sit back from the road behind iron gates, and the trees are old and very tall. The property they arrive at is not what Claire expected. Not a compound, not something that announces itself. It is a stone house, long and low, set into a hillside above a narrow lake that Claire does not know the name of. The gardens are put to bed for winter, everything tucked under snow, but she can tell even now that in other seasons, this place would be extraordinary. There are lights in every window. A man comes out to meet the car. He is young, with sharp features and an alertness that reminds Claire of certain emergency room nurses she has known. People trained to process everything and react to nothing. Miss Beaumont, I'm Felix. Mr. Caruso asked me to get you settled. He takes her bag before she can protest. He'll be here tonight. The inside of the house is warmer than she expected. Not cold or formal, real warmth, the kind that comes from fires actually being lit and meals actually being cooked. The kitchen smells of something with cardamom. A woman in her 60s with silver hair in a practical braid comes out and introduces herself as Mrs. Okafor and tells Claire that lunch will be ready in 40 minutes and that her room is at the top of the left staircase, third door, and that there are extra blankets in the chest at the foot of the bed because the heating in that wing runs cool. Claire stands in the kitchen and thinks, this is either the beginning of something or the end of something, and she cannot tell which. She goes upstairs to wash her face. She finds the girl by accident 3 days later. She has been exploring. It is the only thing that settles her mind, walking the quiet corridors of the house, learning its geography. She has discovered a library, a room full of drafting tables covered in architectural drawings, and a greenhouse off the east wing where something green and complicated is growing in long raised beds. The room at the end of the upstairs hallway has its door cracked open. Light from inside. Claire almost walks past and then stops, because from within the room comes a sound she has not heard in a long time. A child, talking to herself quietly in the concentrated way that children do when they are deep in something. She pushes the door open. The room is painted a pale yellow. On the floor, surrounded by an extraordinary arrangement of colored pencils, sits a girl who could be 9 or 10, with close-cropped dark hair and her father's eyes, which Claire does not yet know are her father's eyes, but will understand very soon. She is drawing something large and complicated on a piece of paper that spans almost the full width of her small body. She looks up at Claire without alarm. You're the woman staying here, she says. I'm Claire. What's your name? Isabelle. She returns to her drawing. What do you think clouds look like when they're angry? Claire sits down on the floor, because this is clearly a floor conversation. She studies the drawing. It is the lake, rendered in colors that are not technically accurate but feel emotionally precise. The water is 6 different shades of gray and the sky is doing something complicated above it. What do you mean angry? Like before a storm, when the light goes that color? Isabelle frowns at a pencil, selects a different one. I can't get it right. Have you tried purple? Not much, just at the edges. Isabelle considers this with the full seriousness it deserves, then picks up a deep violet and tries it at the margin of one cloud. Oh, she says, yes, that's it. They draw together for an hour. Claire asks questions carefully and Isabelle answers them with the particular directness of a child who has grown up mostly around adults. She is in 5th grade. She wants to be an architect or possibly a person who designs video games. She hasn't decided yet. She likes storms better than sunny days because sunny days are what everyone expects. Do you live here? Claire asks. Most of the time. Sometimes I stay at our apartment in the city. Isabelle makes another careful mark. Papa travels a lot. Your papa is Mr. Caruso? Yes. She looks up. Are you his girlfriend? No, Claire says. He's helping me with something. We're friends. Isabelle nods, apparently satisfied. He helps a lot of people, she says. He doesn't like it when people are in trouble and nobody does anything. She says this with the matter-of-fact certainty of a child reciting something she has heard many times. He says that's how bad things keep happening. Before you keep reading this story, if this little girl has already gotten to you, if you feel what Claire is starting to feel in this moment, leave a comment below. Tell me you're here. Tell me you believe that the people we find in the hardest moments are sometimes exactly the people we were meant to find. Claire looks at Isabelle for a long moment, at the careful way she holds her pencil, at the drawing spread across the floor, the lake in its impossible colors, the sky doing its complicated thing. She draws when she's sad, Isabelle adds. My mammon used to. The past tense lands quietly in the room. What happened to her? Claire asks gently. She died. Isabelle says it the way children say difficult things when they have had time to get used to them, not without feeling, but without dramatics. 3 years ago. It was very fast. She didn't know she was sick and then she wasn't here anymore. I'm so sorry, Isabelle. Papa doesn't talk about her much. I think it still hurts him. She adds a line of violet to the horizon. But he kept all her things. Her books are in the library. I can show you if you want. It is at that moment that Mr. Caruso appears in the doorway. He has been traveling for 2 days and there is tiredness around his eyes. But when he sees Isabelle on the floor with Claire, something in his face changes, relaxes or opens or both at once. Papa! Isabelle scrambles up and crosses the room and he catches her and lifts her and she wraps around him with the complete physical trust of a child who has never once had a reason to doubt this person. What are you two doing? He asks over her shoulder, looking at Claire. Isabelle is teaching me about stormlight, Claire says. She's very good. Isabelle pulls back and cups his face in both hands, the way children sometimes do, and says, Can Claire stay for dinner? She picked the right color for the angry clouds, Mr. Caruso holds his daughter's gaze for a moment and then looks at Claire. There is something in the look, layered and careful and a little undone, that she does not quite know what to do with. She can stay as long as she likes, he says. The weeks pass differently than Claire expects. The divorce proceedings are slow and ugly in exactly the way that divorces are when one party has more lawyers than conscience. Daniel's team contests everything. The shared accounts, the plateau apartment, the car, the professional licenses she hasn't used in 3 years, but are still technically hers. He gives a radio interview. He says the word heartbroken 4 times and Claire's name twice. He implies she is unstable without technically saying so, which is the thing he has always been best at. Mr. Caruso's lawyers are 3 women and 2 men who seem to eat Daniel's filings for breakfast and ask for more. They have found things that Claire did not know about. Offshore transfers, a property in Charlevoix registered in the name of a company that does not appear to exist. Business arrangements that the Quebec Revenue Agency would find very interesting. In the evenings, when the legal work is done, Claire reads in the library. She walks the property in the early dark. She learns which trees Isabelle has names for, and which corner of the greenhouse produces the herbs that Mrs. Okafor uses in the soup Claire has decided is the best thing she has ever eaten. She and Isabelle build an indoor fort using the dining room chairs and 3 good blankets and proceed to spend a full rainy Saturday inside it, reading aloud to each other from a book about a girl who discovers a door in a mountain. She understands, slowly, what she is watching in Mr. Caruso, not a man who uses power the way Daniel does, as a stage, as a blunt instrument, as evidence of his own worth. Something quieter than that. She sees it in the way he talks to Felix, who reports to him but is treated as though his opinions matter. In the way Mrs. Okafor speaks to him, direct, unafraid, like someone who has known him long enough to know the difference between his moods and his character. In the way Isabelle reaches for his hand without thinking about it, and the way his hand is always there. She sees it in the way he looks at Claire when he thinks she is not watching. One evening in December, she finds him in the library after Isabelle is in bed, standing at the window with a glass of bourbon and a particular kind of stillness that she recognizes. It is the stillness of someone who is usually performing and has momentarily stopped. "You didn't grow up in rooms like this," she says. He turns, not startled. "No, I grew up in 4 rooms above a dépanneur on Beaubien. My mother worked double shifts and my father worked himself to death before I was old enough to stop him." He says this without bitterness, the way he says most things. "Everything I have, I built. How?" He looks at her for a long moment. "Not always by the most straightforward route." "I know that," Claire says. "I've been here 4 weeks, I'm not blind." Something shifts in his expression. "You're not, and I'm not afraid of it." She meets his eye steadily. "I spent 5 years with a man who wore a perfect suit and sat on charity boards and said the right things at the right events. He was the most dangerous person I have ever been close to." She pauses. "The danger you carry is at least honest. It doesn't hide." Mr. Caruso is very still. "Most people would not find that comforting. I'm not most people." The silence between them is different from the first one, in the bar on Rue Saint-Paul. That one was the silence of strangers finding ground. This one is the silence of people who have already found it. He crosses the room and sits beside her in the second chair by the fire, and they stay like that for a long time, talking about nothing and everything. And at some point the conversation slows and the fire dims and neither of them moves to leave, and that is how it begins. Quietly, without announcement, in a room full of books that belong to a woman he loved and lost and cannot yet put away. January arrives with its teeth. It is Felix who brings the news on a Tuesday night. Daniel has hired someone. Not a lawyer, not a process server. Someone else. He has been watching the property. There are photographs. Mr. Caruso's face goes very still in the way Claire has learned means he is in a different mode now. "What kind of someone?" she asks. "The kind that doesn't need a court order," Felix says. "How long? We noticed them 4 days ago, but they've probably been there longer." Felix does not look at Claire when he says the next part. He knows she's here. The team assembles. Claire watches from the kitchen doorway as people she has only glimpsed before become visible and purposeful, taking up positions and speaking in low voices over maps. Felix moves with a precision that makes the room quieter simply by him being in it. Mr. Caruso stands at the center of it and gives instructions without raising his voice. Later, when the others have gone to their stations, he comes to find her. "I should leave," Claire says. "I'm putting everyone here at risk." "No." He says it flatly. "You're not going anywhere, Marco. Listen to me." He sits across from her at the kitchen table, his hands flat on the surface, his dark eyes direct. "Daniel Fitzpatrick has been doing this for 5 years, making you feel like you are the problem, like your presence is a burden, like you should remove yourself to make things easier for everyone." He pauses. "I need you to understand that everything that is about to happen is happening because of what he is, not what you are. Do you understand the difference?" She does. She has understood it for weeks, actually. She is still getting used to someone saying it out loud. "I want to help," she says. He looks at her for a long moment. "Can you trust me completely for 48 hours? "Yes. Then I need you to keep your normal routine, all of it. Breakfast with Isabelle, your walk, the library. Make it look like nothing has changed. And Isabelle? She goes to my sister's in Laval tomorrow morning for a few days. She'll think it's Claire's eyes. She will not know anything is wrong." Claire nods. Okay, he stands. Then, almost as an afterthought, he puts his hand over hers on the table, just for a moment. Then he goes back to his maps. The next 48 hours are the longest of Claire's life. She does her walk. She reads in the library. She has dinner by herself and cleans up afterward and goes to bed at a normal hour and lies there listening to the quiet sounds of a house that is quietly not quiet at all. On the second night, just after 11, she hears the specific kind of commotion that is not dramatic but is deliberate. Movement, a muffled voice, a door. It is over in less than an hour. Mr. Caruso comes to her room and knocks. When she opens the door, he looks at her steadily for a moment before saying anything. "We have them both." And they talked. What did Daniel tell them to do? "It doesn't matter now, it matters to me." He holds her gaze. "He told them to bring you back, at whatever cost." The words settle into her like stones into still water. She has known, abstractly, what Daniel was. She is finishing the process of knowing it concretely. "What happens next?" she asks. "Tomorrow morning, a very good friend of mine who works in the Procureur General's office is going to receive a full account of tonight with documentation, corroborated testimony, and enough supplementary material on Daniel Fitzpatrick's business practices to make the next few months of his life very interesting. Will it be enough?" Mr. Caruso's voice is quiet and absolute. "It will be enough. It is enough. Daniel is arrested on a Wednesday, in the lobby of the building on René Levesque where his office is, with 3 of his partners watching and a journalist who was tipped off by no one in particular already there with a camera. He is released that evening on conditions. The conditions include, among other things, no contact with Claire Beaumont Fitzpatrick. The divorce is granted in February, on a day when the sky above Montreal is that particular winter blue that is almost painful to look at. Claire walks out of the Palais de Justice on Notre Dame Street and stands on the steps in the cold and breathes. Mr. Caruso is at the bottom of the steps, not at the top, not dramatically. Just there, in his coat, with his hands in his pockets, looking at her with those October eyes. "Well," he says, "it's done." She walks down to him. "I don't know how I feel. That's normal, is it? Completely." He falls into step beside her as they start walking, no particular destination. First you feel nothing, then you feel everything. Then you feel like yourself. Is that from experience? From watching someone else go through it, and wishing I had been there to tell her the same thing? He glances at her sideways. "I'm here to tell you." They walk along the river. The ice is beginning to break in places, cracking and shifting in the current, revealing the dark water underneath. The city hums around them. Somewhere behind them, the bells of Notre Dame are doing something enormous. Claire stops walking. "I need to tell you something," she says. He stops beside her. "I know what you are," she says. "I mean, I know more than I knew in November. I've been in your house for 3 months. I've watched how it works. I understand the shape of it. And," his voice is neutral, waiting, "and I am not asking you to be something different." She faces him. "I spent 5 years with someone who performed a version of himself that was completely constructed. I would rather have one honest thing than 100 polished ones." She pauses. "What I am asking is whether what I think is happening between us is actually happening, or whether I invented it because I needed it to be." Mr. Caruso is quiet for a long moment. "You didn't invent it," he says. "Marco, I have been careful," he says. "I made a deliberate choice to be careful, because you were in a vulnerable situation, and I did not want to be another person who took advantage of that. I have been careful every single day since November." He looks at her steadily. "But I would like very much to stop being careful now if that's something you want too." Claire looks at him. At the snow beginning to fall again. Always snow, in this story, snow and rivers and cold air that somehow keeps feeling like the beginning of something. At the man in front of her who listened before he spoke, and helped before he asked and waited because he understood what waiting meant. "Come home," she says. "Let's go home." Spring arrives late in Quebec, but it arrives with conviction. The day of the wedding is a Saturday in May, warm enough to open the doors of the stone house onto the garden, where the apple trees are mid-bloom and the lake at the bottom of the hill is green gold in the afternoon light. Claire gets ready in the yellow bedroom, Isabelle's room, at Isabelle's insistence, while Isabelle sits on the bed in her dress and provides a running commentary on everything with the authority of someone who has been planning this event in her head for several months. "You have to put the flowers in your hair loose," she says. "Not tight. Tight is too formal." "Is it?" "Yes. You want to look like you're at a wedding, not at a job interview." Claire laughs, and the laugh is real, which is something she has relearned this past year. That laughter can be real, that it doesn't have to be performed for someone else's benefit. Her mother is downstairs. Mrs. Beaumont made the trip from the plateau in a car Mrs. Okafor arranged, in a wheelchair she has recently accepted. Wearing a yellow dress she bought herself from a boutique on Saint-Denis and paid for with her own money. The apartment on the plateau is in her name now, paid through an arrangement that has nothing to do with Daniel Fitzpatrick, and everything to do with the fact that Mr. Caruso, when he decided to do something, did it properly. The ceremony is small. 20 people in the garden, people who matter, which it turns out is a much shorter list than Claire once thought it was, and also a much better one. She walks down the path between the apple trees on her own, because she is a person who makes her own choices now, and she has no desire to be given away again by anyone. Mr. Caruso watches her approach from his place at the end of the path, beside his brother who stands as witness, and the expression on his face is something that Claire tucks into a part of herself she intends to keep safe and return to often. They wrote their vows themselves. "I promise to see you," Claire says. "Not the surface of you, the real you. The man who drove through a snowstorm once to bring his daughter her favorite book, because she called and said she was sad and couldn't sleep. The man carries more than most people know about and asks for less than he deserves. I promise to see him clearly, every day. Marco's voice when it comes is steady and low. I promise to stand beside you," he says, "not in front of you, not behind you. Beside you, I promise to protect you without limiting you. I promise that you will never again have to find $40 in a grocery budget to feel like you have something of your own. I promise to love you in the easy days and the hard ones, in the certain ones and the ones that terrify us both. I promise to choose you every day on purpose for the rest of my life. Isabelle, standing to the side in her white dress, produces a sound that is either a sob or a cheer and is probably both. When it is over, when the rings are given, and the words said, and the small crowd makes the specific noise that weddings make when they go the way they were supposed to, Isabelle launches herself at both of them with the force of a child who has been waiting patiently for approximately as long as she is capable of waiting. "Okay," she announces from the middle of the embrace. "Now we're a real family." Later, well after the guests have gone and Mrs. Okafor has persuaded Claire's mother to stay the night rather than make the drive back in the dark, Claire finds herself alone for a moment at the edge of the lake. Her heels are off. The water is very cold against her bare feet. Above the tree line, the first stars are beginning. She hears footsteps on the grass behind her. "Escaping already?" Marco's voice is warm. "Never." She leans back as his arms come around her from behind. "Just trying to memorize it." "Memorize what?" She considers the question. The lake, the blossoming trees in the dark, the light coming from the windows of the house where her mother is probably already asleep and Isabelle is definitely not. The improbable, particular, impossible shape of how she got here. One night in November, a bad dinner, cold cobblestones, a bar she almost didn't walk into, a man who offered help without asking for anything back. "Everything," she says. "All of it. I don't want to forget what it felt like to arrive." Marco presses his lips to her hair. They stand at the edge of the water in the May dark, and behind them the lights of the house burn warm against the night sky. And Claire Beaumont, Claire Romano now, though she will keep both because both are hers, listens to the lake and breathes and does not look away from any of it. She has earned the right to look at her own life without flinching. She intends to use it.